Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. I had an idea to have a random state generator pick a state, and once that state is chosen, and then we go to that state's Reddit page and we read about the creepy and spooky stuff that has been going on within that state. And you never know, eventually I might get to yours. Without further ado, let's get started. First spin. Who are we reading about today? Iowa. Iowa people, you have been chosen. This first story begins like this. Long story, sorry. I tried posting it earlier and kept getting an error. I'll try posting it in 2 parts and see if that works. I've told it so many times over the years and still get goosebumps at the end every time. Not overly scary, just kind of creepy and weird. Part 1. Late 80s, Southwest Iowa. The summer after high school graduation. Some friends and I were hanging out, drinking and smoking late one night in Atlantic, and someone got the bright idea that we should take a bunch of eggs and go egg a neighboring small town. We picked Cumberland. At this point, it's after midnight and we head out of town. It was myself, 2 of my buddies, and one of their girlfriends. It's a little over a 20-minute drive on a country highway, and about halfway there I had to take a leak, so I told them to pull over. I hopped out and walked back behind the car when suddenly they slammed the door and peeled out. I could hear them laughing. They headed down the road and over a hill. Haha, very funny, I thought to myself, and took care of business, thinking they would turn around and come back for me. I watched though, and saw their lights go over the next hill and disappear. Terrible friends. I sighed and started walking. It was a nice summer night, just enough light to make out my surroundings and see the outlines of trees and such. Within a minute or 2, I heard a very distinct animal noise in the field on the north side of the road. I had never heard it before. Kind of a cat-like mooing call, but unlike anything I'd ever heard before. Very distinct and kind of eerie. We moved way out in the country when I was 10, and I had spent most of those years playing and exploring outside with my friends and dog. I enjoyed hunting and fishing and camping, and my grandpa was quite the outdoorsman. I was pretty familiar with Iowa wildlife, so it seemed weird that I had never heard this sound before. I figured it must be something nocturnal I hadn't run into yet. The odd thing was, I kept repeating, and it stayed even with me, even though I was walking on the road at a pretty brisk pace. To me, it sounded like it was about 50 yards in the field on my left, and it called out about every 30 to 90 seconds. Always dead even with me. As comfortable as I was being out alone at night in the country, it started to get unnerving since it was obviously following me, and I couldn't hear any sound of it moving through the field, just the call. This went on for 20 minutes or more, and I was really starting to get weirded out by it and pissed that my friends weren't back yet. Later, I found out they drove all the way to Cumberland and egged some houses and cars without me. Finally, I see some car headlights coming towards me, but I realized I was walking alone in the dark at 1 in the morning, and I wasn't sure the car coming at me was them, so I got down into the ditch a little ways in case it wasn't. As they got closer, I could see they were slowing down, and I recognized the headlights of my friend's car, so I popped up out of the ditch so they could see me. As I did, he gunned it towards me, and my other friend leaned out the window and threw an egg and got me right in the chest as they went past. I stood there stunned, unbelievably pissed. They stopped and they hopped out and came running back towards me yelling, "Don't kill me, we just thought it would be funny. Here's an egg, you can hit me." As he was doing this, the car peeled out again and looked like it was leaving us. I took the egg and smashed it on his back, and we both had a laugh. The car got to the top of the next hill and stopped. We could see they were turning around to come back, and he said, Let's hide and make them find us. We ran a little ways down the road and jumped in the ditch on the north side as the car was heading back towards us. Immediately, right behind us, a very loud, we hear the weird caterwauling sound that had been following me, only it was closer and louder. My friend grew up in the town. He wasn't a country kid and was like, "What the F was that?" I said, "I don't know, but it's been following me ever since you left. Probably just some animal." I could tell he was freaked out. It was a strange, creepy sounding call. Very distinct and unusual. The car went past us, going kind of slow, and they were yelling out the windows for us to show ourselves. When they had gone past a little, we jumped up in the road behind them, yelled at them, and then sprinted the other direction. By the time they turned around and came back towards us, we had climbed back down into the ditch, and they drove past again. Once again, the noise came from directly behind us, maybe 50 to 75 feet away, and this time, my friend kind of jumped and said in a panicky voice, "That effing thing has been here the whole time? What is it? Why is it following us?" I acted all tough and said it was just some animal, even though it was bothering me too. So this time, when our friends drove by, we let them get farther away, and we took off down the road without yelling at them. Pretty soon we came to the bridge. The creek/river wasn't very big at this point, maybe 50 feet across, but it had very sloped banks, and the bridge was fairly long, maybe a couple 100 feet. We could see that they had turned around and were headed back towards us, so we sprinted across the bridge, laughing all the way, and jumped down in the ditch on the other side. Right on cue. The sound came from right behind us, loud and creepy. Now we realized it had somehow crossed the river without us hearing it, and it kept up with us even though we were running. At this point, my friend was visibly shaken, and he was totally done. He jumped up and waved his arms so they could see us and was yelling, "I'm getting the F out of here. There's something chasing us." I kind of laughed, but to tell the truth, I was relieved to get out of there as well. I heard it one more time before I climbed to the seat. Distinct and clear, even closer than before. My friend went nuts talking about it all the way home. We had lots of guesses as to what it could have been. An owl was maybe the only one that could explain nocturnal and crossing the river with us, but I didn't think so. It would have had to fly each time I heard it. No way an owl could walk at my pace, and it just doesn't seem like owl behavior. Plus, I've heard most of the owls that live around here. This doesn't sound like anything like them. From then on, my friends would bring it up anytime we talked about anything spooky. I thought that would be the end of the story. We went separate ways after high school. I went to uni. My other friend went to Iowa State, and my ditch buddy lived in Atlantic and worked at grocery stores. To be continued. To be continued right now, because part 2 is right here. Fast forward a couple years, it's 91 or so, and I had left school to come back home and help my mom out for a while after my dad passed away. She had moved to a small 1-bedroom farmhouse at the end of a gravel road near Lewis, where that house was the only one on the road. Its dead ended after our house, and there was a cornfield right across the road from the house, literally 50 feet from the driveway. All I'm gonna say is that I will never be caught anywhere near a cornfield. You could throw a rock from the front porch deep into the corn. That's how close it was. Mom was out of town for a couple of days, and I was getting ready to take a trip back to Cedar Falls to be in a wedding for some friends from college that were getting married. I was packing up the night before and took my suitcase out to my car sitting in the driveway at like 11 o'clock at night. I opened the trunk and put the suitcase in. Back turned towards the corn, and all of a sudden that distinct mewling sound goes off right behind me in the field, maybe 50 feet away. Immediately, all the hair on my neck and arms stood up, and I had this kind of panicky, sick, gut-wrenching feeling. It was so close, and definitely the exact same noise. Nothing else is quite like it. I felt unnaturally panicked. It caught me by surprise. I didn't turn around. I shut the trunk, gently and walked quietly towards the house. In my head, I was trying to rationalize it and not panic. It was all I could do to not run. By the end, I was walking pretty fast, but I never looked back, and I deadbolted all the doors after I got inside. It was hard to fall asleep that night. Later, I told my friend I had heard it again, and he had all kinds of crazy theories as to what it could be. Since the internet exists now, I've tried to figure out what it could have been. You can hear recordings of most animals online, and I've never found anything like it, not even close. I've only ever heard it those 2 times, and I hope to never hear it again unless I'm somewhere in the middle of the day in bright daylight, like a zoo, lol. Sorry this got so long, but that's my creepy/weird Iowa story. This next story is set in 2008, rural Floyd County near Cowell on my grandparents' farm. Myself and about 20 buddies were doing an all-night airsoft event at my grandparents'. It was getting late, say 11ish, and we were just starting the last game mode for the night. My team was set to defend the small cabin on the far side of the pond, while the other team needed to infiltrate it. Long story short, I was camped low in the bushes by the pond, waiting for the enemy to press down the path toward me. My buddy, we'll call him Nick, was up higher up on the main path, looking down towards myself in the lane. After 10 to 15 minutes, personally, I was feeling surprisingly cozy. It was a nice night, mid-70s, half moon with light cloud cover, so not overly dark or anything. I was just relaxed, taking in the moment when I hear a tense whisper from Nick from above. "Nebula, is there anyone else down there with you?" At this, my blood instantly ran cold. Somehow from his tone, I got that sense that anyone wasn't referring to an enemy player. So quietly and calmly as I could, I crawled from my hiding spot and to his position. Nick then explained to me what he had seen. Basically, he claimed to have seen a shadow figure floating a few inches off the ground, crossing the lane and ducked down into my hiding spot. Now mind you, on my end, I didn't feel any sort of presence or anything out of the ordinary until Nick alerted me, so take that as you will. Maybe his mind was just playing tricks on him, but he was super adamant about what he saw, and we made sure our guns were fully loaded. Because ghosts are vulnerable to Airbnbs, apparently. Airbnbs, oh my goodness, that's places where you stay. Because ghosts are vulnerable to airsoft BBs, and we kept watch for the rest of the night, but nothing else happened. On a related note, my dad once told me in the same general area in the 80s or something, one of his cousins was out for a late gravel drive when he came across a burning demon figure standing in the middle of the road. I wish I had more details, but when I pressed my dad about it, he said that was all he could recall from the story. 4 years ago in west central Iowa, was walking the block from my aunt and uncle's house to my house while cutting through a cousin's yard. But that's small town rural Iowa for you. It was dark, about midnight, and warm, yet there was a slight breeze. I felt like something was watching me. I slowly turned around and saw a giant shadow in a tree about a block away. It was sort of backlit by a street light off the next block. The initial shape was like a giant owl sitting on the branch. I stared at it for a few seconds, trying to make out what it was. It was way too big to be an owl, and although I could make out no details, a chill down my spine told me we were staring at each other. I got an instant GTFO vibes, and I will swear on this day till the day I die that it stood up on the branch, showing a more humanoid silhouette opening up these giant wings. It looked like it was going to take off, so I turned and sprinted the remaining half block to my place. I immediately texted my cousins, and they laughed at me and told me to come back if I was scared. I told them there was no way I was going back outside with that thing out there. They thought I was making things up or over-exaggerating the size and shape. Told some coworkers, and they insisted it was just an owl. There's no way that was an owl. This person replied and said, "You know, it's funny, I have a story on my page just like that, if you didn't see it already. You didn't see its face, right? It was just a hulking shadow perched on a bench." And they responded, "Yeah, no face, just a shadow about a block away sitting in a tree. Creepy as hell. I'll have to go check out your story. Just read it. and definitely some similarities. I didn't see a face, but also it was night and it was backlit, so less it had no face and more I couldn't see if it had a face. Interesting. I'm starting to see a pattern with you and two others who have experienced something similar, all in different places too. I'm in the Northwest. I don't think it's the same one, as I never saw nor heard anything again, but I do think there's fragments of something that's not been properly recorded. Owls are already major figures in both indigenous and the European folklore. Who knows? Maybe there's something out there, but I'm waiting on more responses. Thank you for sharing. This is fan-made story, meaning they made this whole thing up. I'm sure a lot of stories, if not all, that I read are made up to an extent or over-exaggerated from real stories. Aww. I have this one memory from visiting my grandpa's farm when I was younger. I was staying a few nights there while my mom and stepdad were on vacation or something like that. Either I went to my mom's folks' house in Sow Center or my grandpa's place just out of town. Either one was fine, of course. I always got ice cream. One of the best parts, besides not dealing with my stepdad. Oftentimes, with my grandpa, he'd just let me do whatever. Within reason, of course. After chores, too. Which wasn't much. Dusting off his car and pick up vacuuming the seats and using the leather spray and wiping down the seats. Then sweeping up the garage. After that, I was free. If I got permission from him or my uncle, I got to drive the four-wheeler. Which in hindsight was incredibly dangerous for a 12-year-old to be driving. Yeah. That's incredibly dangerous. Oh, wow. But I survived, obviously. Besides weaving around the old silos and cattle barns, I often just stayed inside and watched cartoons. Old school Tom and Jerry. I did plenty of other things there. But at the end of the day, when the nights were cool, my grandpa and I would sit outside on the porch. He'd have a little whiskey and a square glass with ice. And I would have a Diet Coke, just taking in the air, watching the stars. Those were good memories. One night, he let me play with this high beam flashlight, powered by the sun itself. The beam could reach the hog barn way down the road about half a mile, out and even further. I don't know why he let me use it, just because, I guess. But that night, I saw something. I looked back and really asked myself if it was just my imagination. But I don't know, because my grandpa saw it too. Barn owls? Creepy ass giant birds. Silent but screech like death on wings. Majestic but eerie at all the same time. I don't know if I've ever seen a barn owl before that point. Maybe in a nature documentary. Or a replica in a natural history museum. They can be fairly big. And have an even bigger wingspan. But this thing, I don't think it was. I was playing around with the flashlight shining up to the sky, imagining it reaching outer space and flashing on Mars, or up to heaven and blinding God, and back down again, hovering over the bean and cornfields, making the light dance on the old cattle barn, the silos, the machine shed, and the old chicken coop. That's where I saw something fly over the top of the roof. It was huge. Silent in the starlight, it was a dark gray. It looked like an owl, but somehow it didn't. It was way bigger for a normal owl, I thought. Hey, Grandpa, look. I pointed it out to him, not yet shining the light on it, not wanting to scare it off. Oh wow, that's a big owl, he said, quite marveled by its sheer size too. I smiled and aimed the flashlight at the bird, ignoring my grandpa's warning not to. I did anyway, because I had free will, and damn it if I wasn't going to use it. The second the light hit it, the flashlight dropped from my hands. I was utterly frozen by what I saw. The hell? I rarely hear my grandpa swear. I knew then he saw it too. Anthony, go back inside. He put a hand on my shoulder. I was still transfixed on the roof of the chicken coop. Whatever it was had vanished, as silent as it came. Eventually, I went back inside. The image of that thing burned into my memory. I don't know what's worse. The fact that my grandpa, a no-nonsense Korean war veteran, was unsettled by this thing, or the fact that it didn't have a face. Maybe it was just the way that flashlight hit it, shining on its face so bright that it obscured the features. But I know for a fact it just didn't. It was like a blank space, a white canvas, where the beak and eyes should have been. When it turned its head, my mind cramped at the sight. It was like God had forgotten to edit this one. My grandpa ushered me inside before he decided to go investigate. I didn't see if he had a gun, but I figured as much. It's the country after all. I sat alone in the dining room table, listening to the steady ticking of the clock. The silence was heavy as I waited for my grandpa to return. The house always had that creepy vibe when the TV or the radio wasn't on, which made it worse. He came back in after a few minutes, running a hand over his thinning hair, a distant look in his eyes, like he saw it again, or thinking back on it from earlier. Grandpa, what was that? Just a barn owl, Anthony. You sure? Yeah, you should go to bed. It's late. The apprehension in his voice told me otherwise. He wasn't easy about it, that was for sure. I didn't sleep easily that night. I was too weirded out, not daring to look outside. I didn't want to see it again, nor did I want it to see me. But knowing I was there all the same. Time passed. My grandpa and I never talked about it. I never knew what his thoughts were. Just a silent agreement that whatever we saw that night was best left unsaid, and I never saw anything like that again. And I hope I never will. Okay, that is the end of this video. I hope you guys enjoyed the stories that I chose today. I tried to find as many as I could, but eventually you just hit a point where there aren't that many stories left. If you're feeling a little creepy or weird out, don't. You'll be fine. Seriously, go watch like a cartoon after this or something and you'll be fine. Put some music on. To Mr. Beast video, I don't know. Thank you for watching. See y'all next time.